We must ensure that future generations have the same opportunities.
And that's why our initiative focuses on sustainable practices and community involvement.
The microphone squealed. Marcus felt every eye in the auditorium burn into his skin. 3 seconds ago, the judge had called his name for rebuttal. Now Tyler Harrison stood at the other podium, grinning like he'd already won. Maybe we should hear from someone who actually belongs here, Tyler said, his voice carrying across the silent room. The words hit Marcus like ice water. He gripped the podium edge until his knuckles went white. This was it, the moment that would either destroy him or make him stronger than anyone expected. 20 minutes earlier, Marcus Washington had walked into Westfield Academy's grand auditorium with sweaty palms and a worn debate folder. The mahogany walls rose 30 feet high, lined with portraits of past champions, all white faces in expensive frames. Crystal chandeliers cast sharp shadows across rows of leather seats filled with parents in tailored suits. Marcus was the only black student in the final round. He'd earned his spot through 3 grueling preliminary rounds, beating opponents who trained at elite debate camps all summer. While they spent vacations in Europe, Marcus had worked double shifts at his mom's diner, practicing arguments between orders of eggs and toast. His debate partner, Sarah Chen, squeezed his shoulder. "You got this," she whispered, but her smile looked forced. She'd seen the stares too, the way parents leaned together and whispered when Marcus walked past. The topic was education reform. Marcus had lived it. While his opponents quoted statistics from research papers, he'd experienced overcrowded classrooms and outdated textbooks. His best friend had dropped out sophomore year because his family needed the income. These weren't just debate points to Marcus, they were his life. Judge Patricia Caldwell, a stern woman with silver hair, called the room to order. "Welcome to the state championship finals. Today's competitors are Tyler Harrison and Madison Pierce from Eastmont Preparatory versus Marcus Washington and Sarah Chen from Lincoln High." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lincoln High was the public school, the underdog, the school that shouldn't be here. Tyler Harrison adjusted his navy blazer and flashed a confident smile. His father was a state senator. His mother sat in the front row, wearing pearls that probably cost more than Marcus's mom made in a month. Tyler had been groomed for this moment since elementary school. Marcus touched the small pin on his lapel, his grandmother's church pin, worn smooth by decades of Sunday mornings. She'd raised him after his father left. "Speak your truth, baby," she always said. Truth has power. The first speech went to Tyler. He strode to the podium like he owned the room, speaking about education with the polish of someone who'd never worried about lunch money. His words were sharp, practiced, devastating. The audience nodded along. Then Marcus stood up. His legs felt shaky, but his voice came out steady. He talked about hope, about second chances, about teachers who stayed late to help students who couldn't afford tutors. The room grew quieter as he spoke, leaning forward to catch every word. But something was wrong. In the third row, Marcus noticed a man with a phone recording. Not unusual, except the man was whispering to someone behind him, shaking his head, Tyler's father. And he was smiling in a way that made Marcus's stomach drop. Sarah's rebuttal went smoothly. Then Madison took her turn, her voice crisp and cold, attacking Marcus's arguments with surgical precision. She questioned his sources, his logic, his right to speak for people he didn't truly understand. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Judge Caldwell called for final rebuttals. "Mr. Harrison, you have 4 minutes." Tyler stood slowly, deliberately. He walked to the microphone with the swagger of someone who'd never lost anything that mattered. His opening line made the entire auditorium hold its breath. "Judges, I think we need to address the elephant in the room." Marcus felt his heart slam against his ribs. Tyler's voice grew louder, more confident. "My opponent speaks with passion about public education, but let's be honest about what we're really seeing here. This isn't about policy, it's about lowering standards. It's about participation trophies. It's about letting people advance beyond their natural capabilities." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maybe we should hear from someone who actually belongs here, Tyler said, his eyes locked on Marcus. Someone who earned their place through merit, not sympathy. The auditorium fell dead silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop. Marcus felt 300 pairs of eyes turned toward him, waiting to see if he would crumble or fight back. Judge Caldwell's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. This had never happened before, not here, not in the state finals. Marcus stood up slowly, his grandmother's pen catching the light. His hands weren't shaking anymore. And that's when Tyler Harrison made his biggest mistake. Tyler's smirk faltered as Marcus stepped forward. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. But instead of approaching the microphone, Marcus did something no one expected. He smiled. "Thank you, Tyler," Marcus said, his voice carrying without amplification. "You just proved my point better than I ever could." Judge Caldwell found her voice. "Mr. Washington, please use the microphone for your rebuttal." Marcus walked to the podium, but he didn't grip it like a lifeline anymore. He stood tall, relaxed, like he'd finally found solid ground. The auditorium held its breath. 4 minutes, Judge Caldwell said, her voice tight. Marcus looked out at the sea of faces. Some looked embarrassed, others curious. A few, including Tyler's father, looked angry. But in the back row, Marcus spotted something that made his heart lift. His mother, still wearing her diner uniform, having rushed here straight from work. She gave him the smallest nod. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, "my opponent just gave us a perfect example of what's really wrong with our education system." Tyler's confident posture cracked slightly. He said, "I don't belong here, that I didn't earn my place through merit." Marcus paused, letting the words sink in. "Let me tell you what merit looks like, where I come from." The room leaned forward. "Merit is studying by candlelight when the power gets cut off because your mom chose between electricity and groceries and chose groceries. Merit is walking 4 miles to school when the bus breaks down because there's no budget for repairs. Merit is staying awake in class when you worked until midnight helping your mom close the diner so she could make rent." A few parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Tyler talks about lowering standards, but I wonder what standard is he using? The one where daddy's donations get you into the best prep schools, where family connections open doors before you even knock, where failing upward is just another Tuesday. Tyler's face went red. His father leaned forward, jaw clenched. "I've read Tyler's arguments. They're polished, practiced, probably written by tutors who charge more per hour than my mom makes in a day." Marcus's voice grew stronger. "But they're missing something crucial. They're missing life." The auditorium was so quiet you could hear heartbeats. "See, Tyler thinks merit means being handed opportunities and not messing them up too badly. But real merit is creating opportunities where none exist. It's turning food stamps into fuel for dreams. It's making straight A's in schools with no air conditioning, no lab equipment, no hope, and still believing education can change everything." Marcus noticed something shifting in the crowd. Parents who'd been whispering were now listening, really listening. "My opponent says I speak with passion about public education because I don't understand policy. He's wrong. I speak with passion because I understand something he never will. What it means to need education like oxygen. What it means to see it as the only ladder out of a hole that's been dug for generations." Tyler tried to interrupt. "I'm not finished," Marcus said quietly, but with such authority that Tyler actually stepped back. "You want to know about merit, about belonging? Let me tell you about my classmates. Maria, who translates for her parents at every school meeting because they're learning English while working 2 jobs each. She has a 4 GPA and dreams of being a doctor. James, who takes care of his 3 younger siblings every day after school because his mom works nights. He still finds time to run the computer club and teach coding to elementary kids for free." The energy in the room was shifting like a tide. These students don't have prep courses or private coaches. They have hunger, they have fire, They have something Tyler's world can't buy, the absolute certainty that education is their only shot at changing not just their lives, but their families' lives, their communities' lives. Marcus paused, scanning the crowd. Even Tyler's supporters looked uncomfortable now. Tyler asked if I belong here. The real question is, does he? Because belonging isn't about who had the easiest path. It's about who fought the hardest to get here. It's about who has the most to give back. It's about who sees education as a responsibility, not just a privilege. The timer showed 30 seconds left. So yes, Tyler, let's talk about merit. Let's talk about standards, but let's use the right measuring stick. Not the silver spoon you were born with, but the strength you built carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Not the doors that opened because of your last name, but the walls you climbed because no one bothered to build you stairs. Marcus looked directly at Tyler. You think you humiliated me? You think you exposed some weakness? Marcus shook his head. All you did was show everyone in this room the difference between earned strength and inherited arrogance. The difference between someone who debates because it's expected and someone who debates because lives depend on it. The timer hit 0, but Judge Caldwell didn't call time. Nobody moved. Thank you, Marcus said simply, and walked back to his seat. The silence that followed wasn't the stunned quiet from before. It was the heavy silence of people reckoning with truths they'd been avoiding. In the front row, a woman wiped her eyes. Even some of the prep school parents looked shaken. Tyler stood at his podium, mouth opening and closing like a fish. His perfect rebuttal, the one he'd planned to destroy Marcus with, crumbled in his throat. Judge Caldwell cleared her throat. Thank you, Mr. Washington. Miss Pierce, you have the floor for your final rebuttal. But before Madison could stand up, something happened that changed everything. Tyler's father rose from his seat, his face purple with rage, and started walking toward the stage. Senator Richard Harrison's expensive shoes clicked like gunshots on the marble floor. His face was twisted with fury, veins bulging in his neck. 300 people watched him storm toward the stage, his wife hissing, "Richard, no!" from her seat. Judge Caldwell stood up quickly. Sir, please return to your seat. We're still in session. Session's over, Senator Harrison snarled, pointing a thick finger at Marcus. I will not sit here and watch my son be attacked by some. He caught himself, but everyone heard what he almost said. The word hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus felt the familiar burn in his chest, the same feeling from every time someone looked at him like he didn't belong. But this time, something was different. This time, he wasn't alone. He could feel the room's energy shifting, turning against the man on stage. Dad! Stop, Tyler whispered, but his voice cracked. For the first time all day, he looked like what he really was, a 17-year-old kid watching his world crumble. Senator Harrison whirled around. Stop? Did you hear what he said about our family? About you? His voice echoed off the high ceiling. This is exactly what's wrong with these bleeding heart programs. Give them an inch and they take a mile. Give them a microphone and they bite the hand that feeds them. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but it wasn't agreement. It was shock. Even the prep school parents looked horrified. Marcus stood up slowly. Sarah grabbed his arm. Don't, she whispered. He's trying to bait you. But Marcus gently pulled free. No, Sarah, he's doing something else entirely. Judge Caldwell's voice shook. Senator Harrison, I'm asking you one final time to take your seat or leave the premises. Leave? Senator Harrison laughed, but it sounded more like a bark. I've donated more money to this tournament than that boy's family has seen in their entire lives. I've sponsored this event for 12 years. I think I've earned the right to speak my mind when someone attacks my son. That's when Marcus realized what was really happening. This wasn't about defending Tyler. This was about control, about power, about a man who'd never been challenged by someone he considered beneath him. Marcus walked to the center of the stage, not to the microphone, just to the center where everyone could see him clearly. Senator Harrison, Marcus said, his voice calm as still water. Thank you. The senator's mouth fell open. What? Thank you for proving every single point I just made. Marcus's voice carried to every corner of the auditorium without amplification. You're angry because your son got outworked by a kid from the wrong side of town. You're furious because all your money and connections couldn't buy him the one thing he needed today, character. Senator Harrison's face went from red to purple. How dare you? How dare I what? Marcus interrupted. And suddenly his voice wasn't calm anymore. It was steel wrapped in silk. How dare I be better prepared? How dare I work harder? How dare I earn something instead of inheriting it? The senator took a step forward. You watch your mouth, boy. The word boy hit the auditorium like a lightning strike. Gasps echoed from every direction. Even Tyler looked sick. But Marcus just smiled. Not a happy smile, a sad, knowing smile. There it is, he said softly. The real Senator Harrison. Not the polished politician who gives speeches about opportunity and fairness. The real man. The one who thinks he can put me in my place with one word. Marcus looked out at the crowd. Every single person was staring at the stage like they were watching a car accident. You call me boy, Senator. In 2025, in front of 300 witnesses, including reporters. Marcus gestured to the back of the room, where a woman with a camera had been quietly filming the whole time. I wonder what the voters in your district will think about that. Senator Harrison's eyes went wide. He spun around and saw the camera, the woman behind it already typing furiously on her phone. You want to know what's really wrong with education, Senator? Marcus continued. It's not the students, it's not the teachers. It's not even the funding, though we desperately need more. It's people like you, people who think respect is something you can buy, people who think intelligence comes with a trust fund, people who can't stand to see kids like me succeed because it threatens everything you've built your identity on. The auditorium was dead silent except for the scratch of pens on notepads. The reporters in the back were writing as fast as they could. Senator Harrison looked around the room desperately, realizing too late what he'd done. His political career was cracking like thin ice. This isn't what I meant, he stammered. No, Senator, Marcus said quietly. This is exactly what you meant. This is who you've always been. You just usually hide it better. Tyler finally found his voice. Dad, please, just go home. The plea in his son's voice seemed to break something in Senator Harrison. For a moment, he looked less like a powerful politician and more like a confused old man who'd lost control of everything. Judge Caldwell's voice cut through the tension. Security, please escort the senator from the building. 2 men in uniforms appeared from the side doors, walking slowly but purposefully toward the stage. Senator Harrison straightened his tie, trying to recover some dignity. This isn't over, he said, but his voice had lost its thunder. Yes, it is, Marcus replied. It was over the moment you decided to show everyone who you really are. As security reached the senator, he turned to Marcus one last time. You have no idea what you've done. Marcus met his eyes without flinching. I know exactly what I've done. I've shown this room that respect isn't inherited. It's earned every single day. Senator Harrison was led away, his wife following with her head down. As 300 people watched in stunned silence, Tyler stood at his podium, tears streaming down his face. Not from sadness, from pure humiliation. Judge Caldwell cleared her throat shakily. Miss Pierce, you still have the floor for your final rebuttal. Madison Pierce looked around the room, then at Tyler, then at Marcus. She walked to the microphone on trembling legs. She started, then stopped. I forfeit. We forfeit. The words echoed in the vast space. Tyler? Judge Caldwell asked. Tyler nodded without looking up. We forfeit. Judge Caldwell stared at the podium for a long moment, then looked up at the crowd. In 30 years of judging debates, I have never seen anything like this. The championship goes to Lincoln High School by forfeit. but nobody cheered. The room was still processing what they'd witnessed, not just a debate, but the complete destruction of a family's reputation in real time. Marcus walked back to his seat, but he didn't sit down. Something in his gut told him this wasn't over. Senator Harrison's threat still hung in the air like storm clouds. And that's when Marcus noticed Tyler walking toward him, his face streaked with tears. Tyler stopped 3 feet away from Marcus, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face puffy from crying. The entire auditorium watched, waiting to see if this was another attack or something else entirely. "I'm sorry," Tyler whispered, so quietly only Marcus could hear. Marcus studied his opponent's face. This wasn't the arrogant prep school prince from an hour ago. This was a broken kid who just watched his father destroy everything. "Tyler," Marcus started. "No, let me say this." Tyler's voice cracked. "You were right about everything. I didn't earn this. I never earned any of it." He looked around the auditorium at all the staring faces. "I've been handed everything my whole life, and I convinced myself I deserved it because it was easier than admitting the truth." Sarah squeezed Marcus's shoulder. The reporters in the back were still scribbling furiously. "My dad," Tyler shook his head. "What he said to you, what he called you. There's no excuse for that. There never was." He looked Marcus directly in the eyes. "I'm ashamed of him, of myself, of everything I said up there." The silence stretched like taffy. 300 people held their breath. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. Anger was easier than this, easier than seeing his enemy as human. But his grandmother's voice echoed in his mind. "Forgiveness isn't for them, baby. It's for you." "Tyler," Marcus said quietly, "thank you for saying that. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." Tyler nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I need to tell you something else, something important." He glanced toward the exit where his father had disappeared. "After your first speech, my dad made some phone calls to people at Lincoln High, to the district office." Marcus felt ice water in his veins. "What kind of phone calls?" "The kind that could hurt you. Your scholarship applications, your college recommendations." Tyler's voice was barely audible. "He was going to make sure you paid for embarrassing our family." Sarah gasped. The blood drained from Marcus's face. His entire future depended on those college applications. Without scholarships, college was impossible. Without college, he'd end up like so many kids from his neighborhood, trapped. "But after what just happened," Tyler continued, "after seeing what kind of man he really Island, I can't let that happen. I won't let that happen." Judge Caldwell approached slowly. "Boys, I think we should—" "Wait," Tyler said, turning to face the crowd. His voice grew stronger. "I need to say something to everyone." He walked to the microphone without being invited. Judge Caldwell looked like she wanted to stop him, but curiosity won out. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tyler began, his voice shaking but determined. "I need to tell you all something about what just happened here, about what my father did, and about what he's planning to do next." A murmur ran through the crowd. Tyler's mother, still in her seat, looked terrified. "My father called people at Lincoln High School 20 minutes ago. During the break, he's trying to sabotage Marcus's college applications because Marcus had the courage to speak truth to power." Tyler's voice grew steadier. "He's using his political connections to destroy a 17-year-old's future because that 17-year-old is better than his son." The murmur became a roar. Parents started shouting questions. Reporters raised their hands. "I'm telling you this," Tyler continued, raising his voice above the noise, "because someone needs to witness it. Someone needs to hold him accountable, and because Marcus Washington deserves better from all of us." He turned to Marcus. "You asked what belonging means, what merit means. Today, you showed us. You earned something I never could respect, real respect, the kind that comes from character, not connections." Tyler looked back at the crowd. "I'm withdrawing from Eastmont Preparatory. I'm going to finish high school at Lincoln High. if they'll have me. I want to learn what real education looks like, what real students look like, what real merit looks like. The auditorium exploded. Parents were shouting. Reporters were pushing forward. Judges were trying to restore order. But through all the chaos, Marcus heard the one voice that mattered most. Baby. His mother was pushing through the crowd, still in her diner uniform, tears streaming down her face. She reached the stage and pulled him into a fierce hug that smelled like coffee and hope. I'm so proud of you, she whispered in his ear. Your grandmother would be so proud. Over her shoulder, Marcus saw something that made his heart stop. Senator Harrison was back, standing in the doorway with 3 men in dark suits. They weren't security. They looked like lawyers. Or worse, the senator's eyes were cold and calculating now, the fury replaced by something more dangerous strategy. Mom, Marcus whispered, we need to go. Now. What's wrong, baby? Marcus nodded toward the doorway. His mother turned and saw the senator and his men. Her face went pale. Mrs. Washington, Tyler said urgently, take this. He pressed a small recording device into her hand. Everything that happened here today, everything my father said, everything he threatened, it's all on there. Marcus stared at Tyler. You recorded your own father? I started recording when he made those phone calls. I thought, Tyler's voice broke, I thought I was protecting him, collecting evidence in case you tried to sue or something. But now, he looked toward the doorway where his father waited like a predator. Now I realized I was protecting the wrong person. Senator Harrison started walking toward the stage again, his lawyers flanking him like a military formation. Judge Caldwell stepped forward. Senator, I ask you to leave. I'm here in my capacity as legal counsel, one of the suits said smoothly. We have some questions about defamation, slander, and the illegal recording of private conversations. Marcus felt the trap closing around him. Win the debate, lose everything else. Speak truth to power, get crushed by it. But then something extraordinary happened. Parents started standing up. First one, then 10, then 50. They formed a barrier between the senator and the stage. At the front of the group was Mrs. Chen, Sarah's mother, a quiet woman who never said a word louder than necessary. You want to get to those children, Mrs. Chen said in her soft voice that somehow carried to every corner of the auditorium. You go through us first. Senator Harrison stared at the wall of parents blocking his path, his lawyers whispering urgently in his ears. Mrs. Chen stood at the front, barely 5 feet tall but unmovable as a mountain. This is obstruction, the lead lawyer said coldly. We have legal business with these students. Then conduct it properly. Came a new voice from the back of the auditorium. Everyone turned to see Principal Rodriguez from Lincoln High pushing through the crowd, followed by 2 people. Marcus had never expected to see District Attorney Janet Morrison and a woman with a press badge that read State Education Reporter. Senator Harrison's face went white. Janet, this is a private matter. Nothing's private when it's recorded, Richard. D.A. Morrison held up her phone. We've been live streaming for the last 10 minutes. 60,000 viewers and climbing. The senator's lead lawyer grabbed his arm. Senator, we need to leave now. But Senator Harrison shook him off. His political instincts, honed by decades of never backing down, kicked in. You think you can threaten me, intimidate me with cameras and crowds? His voice grew louder. I built this district. I brought jobs here. I made this place matter. No, said a voice from the stage. Marcus stepped forward, still standing beside his mother and Tyler. You took credit for what other people built, just like Tyler took credit for what other people earned. The live stream viewer count flashed on D.A. Morrison's phone, 75-0. You want to destroy my future because I embarrassed your son, Marcus continued, because I showed everyone that merit isn't about money or connections, it's about work. It's about sacrifice, it's about lifting others up instead of stepping on them. Senator Harrison laughed bitterly. You think this is about embarrassment? This is about order? About keeping people in their place? You stepped out of line, boy. There's that word again, Marcus said quietly. The auditorium fell silent. You just can't help yourself, can you, Senator? D.A. Morrison stepped forward. Richard Harrison, you're under investigation for abuse of office, attempted intimidation of a minor, and using public resources for personal vendettas. I strongly advise you to remain silent. Investigation? Senator Harrison sputtered. On what grounds? Tyler walked to the microphone. His hand shook, but his voice was steady. On the grounds of the 27 phone calls you made from your state office this afternoon to the school board, to the district superintendent, to 3 college admissions offices, all using your official title to pressure them into blacklisting Marcus Washington. The live stream viewer count hit 100-0. I recorded everything, Tyler continued. Every threat, every abuse of power, every time you used taxpayer resources to attack a teenager who had the courage to outwork your son. Senator Harrison lunged toward the stage, but the wall of parents didn't budge. You ungrateful little Richard, his wife's voice cut through the chaos. Mrs. Harrison had been silent all day, but now she stood up, her face pale but determined. Stop. Just stop. She walked toward the stage, ignoring her husband's shocked stare. When she reached Mrs. Chen, she paused. I'm sorry, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. For what my husband said, for what my family represents, for raising a son who thought he was better than everyone else simply because of his last name. She looked up at Marcus. You were magnificent today. You reminded us all what excellence really looks like. Tyler stepped down from the stage and walked to his mother. They hugged fiercely, and Marcus could see Mrs. Harrison whispering, I'm proud of you for doing the right thing. Senator Harrison stood alone now, even his lawyers having stepped away. The live viewer count passed 150. 0. You think you've won something here? He said, his voice desperate and mean. You think this changes anything? I'll be back. I'll run again. No, you won't, D.A. Morrison said matter-of-factly. The Ethics Committee will have your resignation letter by morning, or they'll have criminal charges. Your choice. The fight went out of Senator Harrison like air from a punctured balloon. He looked around the auditorium at the parents who despised him, at the reporters documenting his downfall, at his own family standing with his enemies. This isn't over, he muttered, but everyone could tell it was. As security finally escorted the former senator from the building for the second time, Judge Caldwell returned to the microphone. Her voice shook with emotion. In all my years of judging debates, I have never seen anything like today. We came here to crown a state champion. Instead, we witnessed something far more important. We saw what happens when truth meets power, when courage meets cowardice, when character meets privilege. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Washington, you didn't just win a debate today. You reminded all of us why we believe in education in the first place. Not as a pathway to wealth or status, but as a tool for justice, as a weapon against ignorance, as a light in the darkness. The applause started slowly, then built like thunder. It wasn't just clapping, it was gratitude, relief, hope. Marcus felt tears running down his cheeks, but he didn't wipe them away. His mother squeezed his hand. Sarah beamed beside him. Tyler nodded respectfully from the audience. Principal Rodriguez approached the stage. Mr. Washington, I have something for you. He held up an envelope. Full scholarship to State University. Academic and debate team. All 4 years. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. But the applications aren't even. They watched the live stream, Principal Rodriguez said with a grin. The Dean of Admissions called me 5 minutes ago. Said any student who could handle himself like that under pressure was exactly what they were looking for. The crowd erupted again. Through the noise and celebration, Marcus heard his phone buzzing. Text after text. Saw the stream. You're amazing. Your cousin in Chicago. Kid, you just inspired my whole classroom. Miss Rodriguez, your 3rd grade teacher. Scholarship offer from Northwestern. Call me admissions. Documentary rights? Producer? Netflix? His phone crashed from the volume of messages. As the crowd began to disperse, Tyler approached Marcus one final time. I meant what I said about transferring to Lincoln. If you'll help me learn how to actually earn something for once. Marcus studied Tyler's face, seeing sincerity where arrogance used to live. It won't be easy. We don't have tutors or prep courses, just hard work and teachers who care. That's what I'm counting on, Tyler said. He held out his hand. Partners instead of opponents? Marcus shook it. Partners. As they walked out of the auditorium together, the black kid from the wrong side of town and the senator's son, who'd found his conscience, Mrs. Washington, linked arms with her son. Your grandmother was right, baby, she said softly. Truth really does have power. Marcus looked back at the auditorium one last time, at the place where everything had changed, where a room full of strangers had learned the difference between privilege and merit, where a young man had discovered that the most powerful weapon against injustice wasn't anger or violence, it was simply refusing to be silenced. 6 months later, Marcus would deliver the valedictorian speech at Lincoln High's graduation. Tyler would be sitting in the third row, having earned his place through the hardest year of his life. Senator Harrison would be facing federal charges for corruption, and the video of Marcus's debate would have over 10 million views, inspiring students across the country to find their own voices. But that night, walking to his mother's beat-up Honda with a state championship trophy and a full college scholarship, Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before, the absolute certainty that he belonged exactly where he was, and that no one could ever take that away from him again. Truth, as his grandmother always said, had power. And truth, Marcus had learned, always wins in the end. Comment for part 2.